what you're saying is that this kind of experience, I don't know if you could say it's an experience, but the true nature of who we are, it's always available, and people kind of glimpse into it. They have these experiences without realizing that they're actually having them. So what do you think are the barriers? Is it that we're so used to being identified with thoughts? It's like as soon as we have that opening, we have that moment, we don't realize that, okay, here comes another thought. Now we're identified with that thought again. And we're once again back into the content and not noticing the context. And it seems like through this practice, you're flipping it. So you're starting to pay more attention to the context within which everything arises rather than what's arising.
That's right. Yeah. And that's well said that it is, there's, it's good to look at the contents and feel the thoughts, feelings, sensations, emotions, and be clear about what they are, what's happening. But when you shift, then make the next move, which is not on the map of our culture. So the obstacle is that we're overly highly educated, that are, even those who are doing meditation yoga for a long time don't necessarily have an easier time doing this than people who just are what I call naturals, or kind of tends to be like good-hearted people or something, or kind of intuitives, but that the obstacle is that we are trained both culturally and educationally to go to thought, and that sense, whether we believe that I think therefore I am, that we feel like we're a thinker, we're a doer, and and that development of the highly functioning, fast-paced way of identifying and trying to be safe, the better it gets, the more neurotic it gets, and the more anxious it gets, unless it kind of chooses one role to play, and then it just kind of shuts us down, either in a kind of depressive or a role. I'm just this way. This is just the way I am. I just do what I do, and that's it. Or, hi, I'm just doing what I do. Whatever that is, that feels like the only option to. And then we try to do it with therapy. We try to clean up the cloud of our minds and our bodies. And then what this is doing is adding this next map or model that has to be experienced. And when it's experienced, there's usually these protective parts of us that have been so trained to make us safe that people will shift out into this awareness, and then one part will go, "What are you doing? Where are you going? What about the body? What about, And so you have to learn to use the capacity of this awareness to include those and soothe and let those parts of us know that everything's okay, and we're actually just going to the kitchen to get some food. We'll be right back. We're just upgrading the system. We're actually going to get what you want, which is safety, love, and optimal living. So it needs to be a kind of a new, it's almost like I was just talking with a physicist who was saying that, up through Newtonian physics, before quantum physics, it just it's a whole different model. It works fine. Newtonian physics works fine, but there's this deeper, subtler layer that is a metaphor for what we're talking about. It's another way of perceiving that isn't the small self growing up to be the awake self. It's actually the awake self's already here. So why don't we just glimpse it? And then we're going to get pulled back. That's kind of the training. The training is small glimpses, try to function from it, type, walk, talk, relate, create, and then lose it because the habit is so strong. But just notice the habit and don't judge yourself, or don't judge the judge that shows up automatically without you even doing it. But include all that this awake consciousness and include whatever's happening with a bigger sense of being and a bigger capacity.
Yeah. So what's coming up for me right now is like you were saying, like you're opening up to this experience, you're opening up to this awareness, and then you're moving through your day-to-day life, and then you kind of contract. That's what happens. There's like a contraction and there's a falling off. So what is the experience like when you're actually open?
Yeah.
How does somebody even know that if they're open to this kind of, to the awake awareness, they're open to it? What is the experience like?
Yeah, I mean, we can do a little glimpse or two. Let's see, like give people a chance to try it. But that's the first thing is you can't, the first radical premise is you can't know your true nature or awake awareness or open-hearted presence with your mind, with will, with your small self, with imagination, with thought, with effort, with with any parts of your personality. So the tuner, or what knows, is the awareness itself that's already here and interconnected with the thoughts and the feelings and sensations. So that awareness has to move itself, has to notice, it either drops or opens to be aware of space, and then aware of, mingles with space and awareness, so that there's a feeling of what's called big sky mind or pure awareness, or initially other terms like choiceless awareness or open mind, open heart. But it's literally a feeling that you're not located in your head and not orienting to thought, but there's a more feeling of spacious, but not just spaced out. It's also this subtle awareness that's inside and outside. So the feeling is almost like, the normal feeling is like we're a cloud, like we're a solid body and mind. And then as we look with mindful witness, we say, oh, we're a cloud. That's kind of a process, or we're a cloud of sensation, but we're still here. And then the key is, all right, can the awareness step out to realize we're also the sky? And then resting as the sky, what feels like the sky, what it is scientifically is the thing that gets the logical mind. Well, what do you mean? I know that I have a brain. I've studied biology and neuroscience, but if you've studied biology and neuroscience, when you do these practices and open to this spacious awareness, which feels like you're no longer orienting to thought, but you're alert and here and clear, and then you can include the cloud. So the cloud of sensations, the awareness is not just outside, it's within, and it's also kind of arising as the cloud, just as sky, humidity is still invisible, water, cloud are all the same field of awareness, but there's more space. So this, that's part of the role of the teacher in this, is really like a auto mechanic who just does a checkup. Just like, here's how your car runs, you drive it, tell me what's going on. So it's very much about not a guru, but a pointer. So that's what these kind of glimpse descriptions are, pointers that allow you to do it for yourself. And then, like an experiment, so here's the hypothesis, there's this awareness that's here. It feels like this. spacious, pervasive, interconnected. Now try this. And then you try. And then when you feel it, the key is you can't go back to thought for a second opinion. So if you go back to the thinker to check, am I doing it right? Is this really true? That part of you can't know it. So it will always say, I'm not sure. I don't think so. Maybe not. But if you feel that you go from thought-based knowing to kind of not knowing, but then there's this not knowing that knows. Kind of like when you ride a bicycle, you're riding a bicycle, and I say, well, how do you know you're balancing? You know, if you think about it, you might fall over. But how do you know you're balancing? Well, are you sure you're balancing? I mean, you could logically say, well, I'm not falling over, but how do you know what does that feel like? What does feel like balancing that is not mental? You're not mentally go left, go right, go right. There's just and so you get this new knowing that's like a wisdom mind that trusts and feels directly, direct perception.